Welcome to the Selling Show, where we unpack, repack, and break down exactly how CEOs, founders, and senior executives sell their ideas, point of view, and personal brand to the people who matter most. This is your host, David Newman, and you are in the right place if you want to build market eminence, amplify your influence, and attract high-value prospects, investors, partners, talent, and media opportunities with less chasing and more confidence. Let's go. You know, sometimes you're feeling ignorant about something. So we're on the Selling Show. You might feel ignorant about sales. You might feel ignorant about leadership. You might feel ignorant about entrepreneurship or marketing or who knows. And sometimes it doesn't feel good to be ignorant, but we're going to turn that feeling around because I have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Alan Gregerman, author of the amazing new book, The Wisdom of Ignorance: Why Not Knowing Can Be the Key to Innovation, Big Ideas, Big Breakthroughs, all kinds of things. Alan, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks. No, I'm delighted to share these ideas. And no, it's a great topic. And I think it ought to resonate with folks who are keen to sell more effectively and sell themselves.
Yes, and amen. Now, I know a little bit about your background because we have crossed paths through some various professional channels. For the few people that do not know the Alan Gregerman story, could you please share a little bit about your professional journey that brought you to the work that you're doing today, and what were some fun pit stops along the way?
Oh, good. I don't know if there are that many pit stops. So I started our firm 37 years ago. I mentioned that. People can probably see that I'm not the youngest guy maybe that you've ever had on your show. But I started 37 years ago as an innovation consultant. I work with companies and organizations on strategy and innovation. And the reality is 37 years ago, innovation was a hard sell. So it's fun to be on the show because most companies kind of knew they needed to do new things, but when you said to them, I can help you to be more innovative, they go, don't know if I need that. And so I've been doing this for 37 years. Now every company talks about innovation, and every leader seems to say, I lead or guide innovation. And so now it's like a hot topic in a way, but there's a lot of clutter related to innovation because my guess is most companies and organizations do it all wrong. So I now think of kind of the evolution of our work as continuing to figure out, and we've worked with like 400 companies around the world, continuing to figure out how they actually get the right new ideas out into the marketplace and get them out faster than ever before. Because the one thing I know today is, if you're not quick, it doesn't happen.
Well, let's talk about some of the key ideas in the book. You start out early in the book talking about the right kind of ignorance. So just so people don't get the wrong idea, Alan's not about, hey, be stupid, be uninformed, don't know what you're talking about. There's a very specific kind of ignorance that you call enlightened ignorance. Walk us through kind of the different flavors of ignorance and the kind that you recommend and maybe the kind that you don't.
Okay, good. No, so I'm glad you started there because I think that's important. If we simply read the newspaper or look around, we're surrounded by stupidity, okay? And so I feel like things going on in the world are giving the book and the idea of ignorance a bad name.
Yes.
But if we step way back in human history, the reality is almost all new ideas were based on somebody not knowing something and wanting to figure it out, okay? And so if you think about that, that relates compellingly to all of us today because we're in business trying to create greater value for our customers. But what I talk about in the book is the notion of enlightened ignorance, and that is it's fine to not know stuff. In fact, the reality is that most of us don't know a lot of stuff, but that not knowing should compel us to say, maybe I can figure out a better way to do something. So when I hit a brick wall, I can either say, okay, that's enough. I'm going to go to Starbucks and have a latte. Or I can say, no, this is kind of frustrating. Let me figure out a way around it. And so what I talk about is something that I believe is a fundamental skill in fast moving and uncertain times. And that's the ability to say, I don't know the answer, to be humble, and then to say, now I'm going to figure out a better answer, or I'm going to figure out a new opportunity, or I'm going to engage the marketplace differently in a way to get attention and create value.
I think there was one of these famous innovation quotes, and I cannot, from 30 plus years ago, and I forget who said it, but maybe it was Tom Peters or someone like that. But anyway, the quote is, it's nowhere near as important to be learning. It's important to be unlearning the right things and relearning things, right? So it's almost like the curse of knowledge. And talk a little bit about how when we think we know, or we have, obviously CEOs, experts, sales professionals, they never want to be seen as ignorant. They never want to be seen as not the expert in the room. What's the trap there? What's the trap there when we're so focused on looking smart and sounding smart?
Okay, no, that's good. And think about, especially for those folks in your audience who are leaders. So the reality is 5 years from now, the world's going to be dramatically different than it is today. That doesn't mean that we won't be doing some of the same things we do today, but it means that we have to do some new things. We have to learn some new tricks, some new skills, add new value to our customers. So the reality is, if a leader simply says we have our act together, then they're not being honest with folks, because we may have our act together today, but tomorrow we may be a little bit less together, and the next day less together, and eventually somebody else is eating our lunch. So what I want people to think about is the notion that we're constantly on a journey to get better and better. We can't stand still. And so leaders need to be kind of guiding us. And so because of that, leaders need to say, I don't know exactly what the future is going to look like, because who listening is a leader and can actually say, oh, I know exactly what the next 5 years is going to look like. We have a strategy. We're going to get there. So I don't know exactly what the future is going to look like, but I want all of us as a team to work together to figure it out. And we're going to do that by putting tests out there into the marketplace and seeing which ones stick. Another thing that's awesome to me, I think, I hear it all the time, and you have a lot of folks listening who are sales leaders and sales professionals, is folks say to me, well, Alan, I really don't need to think about this. I don't need to think about new things or what I don't know, because our customers love us. And I say, your customers only love you because they haven't found anything better. And so they'll either find something better from you if you're on your toes and open-minded about it, or they'll find something better from someone else.
Oh my gosh. And I think that really speaks to customer retention, right? We spend so much money, so much time, so much energy, so many advertising dollars. Get a new client, get a new customer, get someone new in the door. Once they're there, what are we doing to retain them and to keep bringing fresh value and fresh insights and new innovative things that they cannot get anywhere else? For every dollar that people are spending on client acquisition, my guess is they should be spending $2 or $3 on enlightened ignorance initiatives.
Oh, I think if you've got a great set of customers to begin with, then they're your asset to keep or to lose, and you ought to be hanging out with them. And let's apply the idea of ignorance not just to us, but to our customers. Our customers know where they want to get to, but they don't know exactly how to get there either. And so they need to go on a journey of enlightened ignorance with us. And if we don't spark that journey with them, again, they'll find somebody else to do that. So we ought to be hanging out, and we can think about where the future's going. And then the reality is we can see clues about how it's getting there. And we ought to take those two things and use those as a target, then work with our customers to imagine the future for them and imagine a future in which we're a significant part of that.
Holy tamales, what is better than this podcast episode right here? Well, I'm going to tell you, it is probably a keynote seminar or workshop on market eminence. If you want to bring that to your association, your conference, or your private mastermind to help your audience with 22 strategies to build a bold personal brand, become a business celebrity, and drive unstoppable growth, I would love to serve your group. Just drop me an email, david@doitmarketing.com. I love the way that you frame the core principles, the 6 principles in the book, because you call them essential gifts, skills, and behaviors. And these are the things like purpose and curiosity and humility. Could you walk us through kind of the greatest hits on each of those 6?
Yeah, so think about it. And, I think you raised a good point. So I think of them as kind of gifts and skills. And I think about them in the following way. I believe kind of innately, everyone listening has the ability to master these 6 skills. They're really at the heart of what it takes to remain relevant as individuals and companies. But I believe we have to develop them. So that's why I think of them as skills. We have the raw talent. We're born as humans to be curious, okay? Somewhere between the school bus and the world of adult work and life, we lose the ability to be curious. So we can get that back, but we've got to invest and develop it. So it starts with purpose, and that is, I wouldn't want to be a person or a leader or an organization that didn't have a compelling purpose that got me to want to go into work every day. Well, not on weekends, of course, but I wouldn't want to be part of an organization that didn't do something that mattered to me. So purpose really is important. And purpose, organizations say, our purpose is etched in stone. Yes, the purpose is etched in stone, but how we actually achieve it is a work in progress. And so that's what I want people to think about. But find something that matters to you, and then I believe you're going to be excited about the powerful way that ignorance can help you to be better. The second is curiosity. And that is, if I really have a purpose that matters, I ought to be curious about how to be awesome at doing it. And I'm curious about it by wandering around the world, looking at best practices, not just in my industry. I can't tell you how many people come to me and they say, well, Alan, we're in banking and we've studied the leading practices of other banks. And I go, are banks really good at this? And they go, and I go, so you're trying to be the best of the worst. Why would you even do that? Why not find somebody who's really good at customer service or whatever you're trying to do? So curiosity means going out and casting a wider net and looking for ideas. Now, here's the cool thing, I think, and that is 99% of all new ideas are based on someone else's thinking or something found in nature. Okay, so why is it that organizations have all of their people come into a meeting room and they say, we've got to be more innovative, we got to be better at sales, we've got to do whatever. Here's a blank sheet of paper. Does anybody have an out-of-the-box idea? The reality is that's like asking people, you've brought your same tired, lame ideas into this room every single day. Now, can you turn on the part of your brain that's actually really clever? Because we need that. But as opposed to doing that, just get out and look around. You'll see all kinds of ideas, hip new businesses, kind of trendy neighborhoods, all kinds of stuff, museums with exhibits about the future. Just go out and look, because you'll find ideas that will strike you. That's what curiosity is about, this casting of a wider net.
Yeah.
The third we've talked about already, and that's humility. And I ought to admit that I don't have all the answers, because if I don't have all the answers, I want to figure out a better answer. If I say to myself, as you mentioned, a bunch of leaders say this, they say, well, it's a bad look to look like I'm clueless. I'm not asking people to be clueless. I'm asking people to be honest and just admit, we don't know exactly how to get where we're going. We're going to figure it out. That's humility. Respect. Respect is the notion that I literally can learn something from any other human being on the planet if I'm open to it. And the reality is, my next best idea is going to come from somebody who thinks differently than I do. I absolutely know that. The fifth one is that I really need to think about the desire that I should have to be future focused. Okay. So people say, how do I do that? I'm not like a mind reader. And I say, get out of your office. The future is walking by your office every single minute. The future is new technology. The future is new customer behaviors. The future is new expectations that customers have. Get out there and actually kind of look at that. So that's the power of future focus. And I need to always be thinking about where I'm going to get to, not just where I am today. And then the last one, which I have to admit lots of people thought was somewhat controversial, is I want everybody to be paranoid. Yes. And so what do I mean by that? What I mean is simply the notion that if you don't figure out how to be brilliant, somebody else will. And so you need to behave as though somebody's always following you, and you need to periodically turn your head and look and see if they're following you. And that should inspire you to kind of up your game, to learn faster, launch things in the marketplace quicker. You know, we live in an era where we can actually just launch ideas out there and see what customers think. They don't have to be perfect ideas. And if it resonates with them, say, great, let's roll up our sleeves and make it awesome.
I'm wondering, when you give keynotes, when you present this to corporate audiences, which part of this triggers the most resistance or the most hesitation in an executive or a CEO?
Okay, good. So that's fair. I think we've talked a little bit about it. So you mentioned earlier, as a leader, I'm supposed to look like I know what I'm doing, okay? Sure. So when I talk about the idea of humility, a lot of people have difficulty separating that from looking like I have my stuff in a neat little pile, right. You know? And so they think about, I don't want people to think I'm Peter principled out here, you know, that I've reached my level of incompetence. Yeah. And I want people to think you've reached your level of realizing that you're going to lead a group of people to getting smarter and doing more awesome things, that's what you're about. So I think that's a challenge. I think the other challenge I find is that organizations say they want to be innovative, but they struggle to be curious about things that they're not super knowledgeable about or comfortable with. So when I say to folks, cast a wider net, folks say, how do I do that? Now, we have a service that we offer that's awesome, I think. It's called Team Learning Adventures, in which we literally take teams of people out exploring the world looking for ideas, and then we apply those ideas to their business and growing their business. I can tell you, when we start one of these, when I say, okay, we're actually not meeting in a meeting room, we're actually going to wander around Philadelphia, Chicago, New York, San Francisco, Washington, Boston. Initially, like half the people go, excuse me? Like I'm leaving the office for what? And then I can tell you by the end of the day or two of exploring, they go, whoa, this was an eye-opener. You know, we've got to really be engaged and pay much more attention. But I think humility and curiosity are tough for leaders. They're tough for organizations because they don't want to admit we're not paying attention.
I'm curious, as the book is sort of wrapping up, you talk about the importance of being different, which I love. Obviously, Market Eminence is all about differentiation and being distinct and being a unique voice and having a unique point of view in the marketplace. You have such a great turn of phrase. You say it's a karaoke world. Talk about the karaoke world for a moment.
Okay, so think about this, you know, and I have to admit, your audience probably would not want to hear me singing. And the only thing maybe worse than that would be hearing me sing an original song, okay? And so think about it. We all tend to want to sing other people's songs, popular songs that have already made it. But the reality is they're oldies but goodies. They've already made it, but will they make it in the future? And so what I want people to think about is it's fine for fun to go to a karaoke bar or sing someone else's song, but ultimately we need to add value. We need to create a new song, and that new song needs to make the lives of our customers better. It needs to put more value in the marketplace. It needs to get people thinking in new ways. If we can't do that, we're simply singing all the whatever Pretty Ladies or, a great song from Jefferson's Starship or a Beatles song, that's okay, but that's not changing anything. I view people who are listening to a podcast like yours as wanting to shake things up in a meaningful way, to have impact, to do something different.
Yes, and that impact piece is really important. You talk about this very bold and very encouraging concept of the future, right? The future of you and the future of companies and the future of organizations. Paint a little bit of a picture of what that future might and could look like if people take this message to heart.
Well, I think the future is all about us consistently thinking about the power of innovation and new ideas. I think the future is about us being even better connected. Most of the people listening probably say I'm pretty connected with my customers, my external or my internal customers. But I think the future is that we're all going to need to take journeys consistently to create value. And we think about who we bring along in that future. I think the future also is, let's be honest, technology is moving faster and faster ahead, and we're either going to remain relevant or we're not. And I worry because so much of the kind of public discourse is around AI, and so little of it these days is around the power of humans to be creative and look at the world around them and figure out stuff that matters.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of a big fan of humans. I mean, I use AI, but I'm like a huge fan of humans. I believe we have a lot of problems that haven't been solved, a lot of opportunities we can create, a lot of impact that's out there for us, and that humans need to take a fresh look. And so the future is about taking a fresh look. The future is about saying, maybe my expertise isn't exactly the expertise I need to get there. Maybe the world's changing and I need to pay attention. Maybe I need to roll up my sleeves with my colleagues and my customers and think about what's possible. Maybe I need to ask bigger questions. I talk in the book about the idea of always asking, what if? Show up at work and say, what if we did this differently? So I want people to understand the power of future focus is simply that I'm going to be living in the future. I ought to get with the program.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Well, I want to go behind the scenes a little bit because you mentioned these amazing programs that you do in addition to your keynote speaking. But what's on the Alan Gregerman menu? How do your clients use you? How do they deploy your expertise with speaking or consulting or events and experiences?
Oh, no. I appreciate that. I mean, I certainly do a lot of keynote speaking, and I'm keen to go and share the ideas in the new book. I mean, I spent a fair amount of time writing the book, and so I'm eager to get these ideas out. I do a fair amount of consulting with companies when they have an idea, either a problem or a challenge or an innovation that they'd like to make happen. And I actually work with the team from figuring out how we might try to solve it, to testing it in the marketplace, to actually launching it in the marketplace. Unlike traditional management consultants, I don't just write a report and then when it doesn't happen, say, they screwed up, my report was wonderful. Right. I actually like to work on things. So I do that. I do these team learning adventures. I take teams to explore possibilities of how they might grow their business. So I do an awful lot of that. So those are probably the main things. I help companies and organizations think strategically about where the future is going to be and how we get there. So those are the types of things I do. And I'm just looking always for companies that want to actually do something, As people can see, because I'm not the youngest guy on the planet, I'm eager to kind of work with companies and leaders who actually realize the world is changing. Let's figure it out.
I think client selection is about 90% of consulting success, don't you?
Well, I think you're an expert in this, of course, but, in retrospect, I'd say, I'd like to say that 90% is good clients and the other 90% is being good at what you do.
That's a 180-degree solution, my friend, right there.
Oh, okay. No, I like that.
Well, I'm also curious. So there's a subset of our listeners who are like us, consultants, speakers, experts who are on stages of various kinds, both in-person stages and conferences and also virtual and online and so forth, webinars, etc. What is your advice? Because you have been doing this now for 30 plus years, consistently getting booked, consistently on the biggest stages. What has been the factor of the speaking part of your success?
Well, I think it's not unlike selling anything. I think you got to do your homework. You got to find places where what you have to offer resonates. You've got to then, I think, before you even ask them if you can speak, you have to show them, and I think it's part of market eminence, you got to show them why you're valuable. So I spend a fair amount of time not only writing books, but generating content and things that I feel I can give to people, that are going to make them smarter, whether or not they hire me. So it's the whole idea of thought leadership, and that's sharing that thought leadership. I mean, if I just have thoughts and then I want to monetize the thoughts, I'm missing the point. Is I want to use the thoughts as a way to get people to think that I might be valuable to them and their audience. Then I want to do an awful lot of making sure I understand what their needs are. And their needs are, they have a set of needs, but also each year, they have a conference or an event, or they bring their people together, and those change depending on what they see going on in the world. So I want to adapt kind of my content and what I know to help them make progress in what matters to them. So it's all kind of driven by them.
Yes.
So those are probably the main things that I think about doing. And then, we joked a second ago, but I have to be honest with you. And I've run my own business for 37 years, and I started another business before this, and I've started and run, when we couldn't afford an executive director, 2 nonprofits that have executive directors. But, and that is, 90% of success is marketing and sales, right? I mean, you can be 100% awesome at what you do, but if you aren't willing to engage the market and put yourself out there and share ideas and show people why your ideas are different or more valuable, why should they hire you?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, a hearty amen to all of that. Right. So our job is not the speaking and the consulting. Our job is selling the speaking and the consulting. Doing the speaking and the consulting is the fun part.
Well, yeah. And if you think about it, our job in the selling and the marketing of what we do is first to put ideas out there that are valuable to people. We're kind of sowing the seeds by suggesting to people that here are some ideas that could help you or help you and your organization, you and your company. And then those ideas start to create the opportunity for us to have a real conversation with them.
Wait. We're not just going to listen to this episode. There are downloads, there are resources, there are links, there are bonuses waiting for you on this episode's page when you go over to doitmarketing.com/podcast. That's right, doitmarketing.com/podcast. Grab the notes right under this episode. See you over there.
I also have to ask you, just author to author, because this is obviously your 4th book, correct?
This is my 4th book that's available wherever thoughtful books are sold.
But so these books have just done better and better and better, and this one has endorsements from some superstars. So I got to ask you, we're talking Mel Robbins, we're talking Josh Linkner, we're talking Jonah Berger, who's here in Philadelphia at Penn, Rory Sutherland, huge advertising guru. How'd you get these endorsements, Alan?
Okay, no, that's fair. So I feel like you get endorsements in a few different ways. One is you actually pay attention to the people you'd like to have endorse you eventually. And so you endorse them, not that my endorsement really carries a massive amount of weight, but you follow them, you endorse them, you support their ideas, you kind of say positive things, you use their ideas as you're sharing ideas. So I think you build up a bit of goodwill because they know you're actually paying attention to them.
Yes.
The second is, I think you do a bit of homework and you say to yourself, who out there might find my ideas valuable? And let me kind of connect with them. And then I reach out to people and I say, look, I've studied kind of your history or your life history or your story. These are the things that resonate with me. And let me step back and say, One of the things I've learned about sales and marketing is, we live in an email era. Nobody wants another email, but everybody, even famous people, want another me-mail. So if in the first 2 lines I can get them to think, I'm really impressed with something about them, then I buy the right to tell them a tiny bit about me. Okay?
Yeah.
So if you take the case of Mel Robbins, I had a contact who knew her, but they said, the likelihood she's going to endorse your book is like close to 0. But here's what I might do. I might send her a note and share that you understand her story and that her story was creating kind of the new Mel Robbins, that is really a story of the wisdom of ignorance, somebody willing to figure it out and make a difference. Yeah. So I wrote to her, wrote about my personal story, wrote about the book, and waited and waited and waited. And fortunately, after 8 weeks, her people said, she actually really liked your book. She thought your book was kind of awesome. She'd be delighted to write an endorsement for it. So I think part of it is you do your homework. The other part is you build connections, not with the intention that tomorrow you're going to ask, but that you're going to ask down the road.
Yeah.
And I think it's like everything in sales and marketing. It's about building rapport and relationships, sharing ideas, showing people you notice them and you understand them, and that it's really all about them.
So good. So good. Absolutely. Well, Alan, where can people get connected and stay connected to more Alan Gregerman brilliance? Where can they get the book? What links should go in the show notes?
Oh, yeah. Well, the brilliance, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but thank you. You're being kind. So they can certainly go to alangregerman.com, and the show notes, I think, will spell my name correctly.
We will.
It's the right way to spell Alan. I don't know if there are people who spell it the wrong way out there. I apologize. No, for you, it's the right way. So they can go there. They can connect with me on LinkedIn. That would be great. And I prefer for people to connect with me. I don't need a lot of followers. What I'm looking for is to connect and learn from people. So if people would connect with me, they can do that. They can go to our business website, which is venture-works.com. We'll put that, I think, in the show notes too. Yep. And there they can learn about these team learning adventures and some of the other services I offer. So those ways they can buy the book. And I offer an unconditional guarantee of satisfaction. If you buy the book and don't find it to be valuable, send me an email. I'll Venmo you whatever you paid for it.
Nice.
They can buy the audio version of the book, which I narrated. I would love them to do that. And I learned from you pre-call that more and more people are listening to audiobooks.
Yeah.
And so I'll try not to interrupt them when they walk through my neighborhood with headphones on. They could be learning.
It's true.
Yeah. So those are probably the best ways to reach me.
Awesome. And all of those links to get connected to Alan and the book are directly under this episode at thesellingshow.com. The book, once again, The Wisdom of Ignorance, Why Not Knowing Can Be the Key to Innovation in an Uncertain World. Alan Gregerman, you are a rock star. I have been following you and a long-distance fan for 20 plus years. This book, I think it's going to blow the doors off, and it's going to be the survival manual for leadership and sales in the age of AI.
Awesome. Thanks. I really appreciate the conversation and being on your show. Thanks a bunch.
And that wraps up another episode of The Selling Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, tell a friend, go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thesellingshow.com. See you next time.